I'm saying. I'm just glad the camera's not on right now. Welcome to test, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just playing with y'all, man. I knew the camera was on, homie. I pressed the button. Anyways, man, you guys know that we do have the Sinquefield Cup going on. So we got round 3. 2 plus 1 is 3. No, I'm playing. We got round 3, man. And this is Anish Giri versus Wesley. So Anish, likes to say, that he is the most prepared player out of all the professionals. So we gonna see, homie. We gonna see what's cracking, man. But anyways, all my people coming from the Philippines this morning. It is super early. So good morning, magandang umaga to you. Mabuhay. Kamusta na aking mga kaibigan? I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Anybody who is coming from the Netherlands or who does speak Dutch, I will say hello and thank you. I appreciate you for stopping by, man. But without any further ado, let's see what we got for this game, son. Bam, we got E4, 1-0. No, I'm playing. We got E5. So you remember me telling you guys yesterday about, we had the Sicilian defense, and you are just trying to disrupt this E4, D4. Well, this is the classical way to do that. You're basically just telling white that you're trying to get as much as they're trying to get. We do see knight to F3. It's going to be 9 out of 10 times you're going to see this move, and then 9 out of 10 times you're going to see this move. And we kind of have a branching point here. We do see bishop to B5, and then knight comes to F6, and we have the Berlin defense. We've actually been starting to kind of play it a little bit differently these days. Not very many players now want to just castle and get into like the known endgame. So we have started to kind of see this D3 move. It's quite fashionable. So it's just not dropping the pawn in the middle and doing all these tactics and everything. You're just playing solidly, getting into a slightly different kind of endgame. We do see bishop C5. Bishop takes C6, pawn takes C6, and you guys know that the bishop to B5 pressuring this knight is trying to allow for you to maybe possibly capture this pawn. One of the things about this position is since you have played the move D3, you are not as much in a situation where you're having to worry about this pawn. And so knight taking E5 is one of the possibilities that can come up because queen to E7 does not attack this pawn because it is protected by this one. So we do see knight going to B, knight B going to D2. We got knight back to D7. And this is just basically saying, hey, man, I know you're putting a lot of pressure on my pawn. So I'm going to go ahead and just defend it. So we got castles by white. We got A5. Since black doesn't know that they're going to be castling king side, they're just trying to grab a lot of space on the queen side. Also, C3 and B4s are definitely ideas that you see in these types of positions. So we are just trying to just stop that right out the gate. We got knight to C4. Queen goes to E7. As you guys can see, knight to F3. It's all about this E5 pawn, basically, if you're white. You got knight F3 attacking and knight to C4 attacking. So you kind of have a lot of pressure on this point. And so Wesley decides to defend it this way. You can also go F6. I will say you need to be careful as far as moving your F pawns. But the major thing that you have to be looking at if you are black is the fact that white does not have a light square bishop. So when you do play F6 and you're creating these light square weaknesses, you actually do not have to worry about that on this diagonal. So that is why you would see this be a possibility. But we do see, like I said, queen to E7. And then we have the novelty of the game, which is C3, which kind of goes along with the plan that I was mentioning before with the C3, B4. It's a lot less, of an issue with A5 as far as black, but, it's still a nice idea. We are trying to prepare the move D4. In these positions, we do see castles by black. Rook goes to E1. Now you are really trying to help your case for D4 because one of your issues was dropping this E pawn possibly. So we do see queen to E6. And you see, this is something I'll be mentioning throughout the thing, is you see black very aggressively playing against this D4 pawn push. You are trying to establish a really good center, like I said, with pawn being able to take back right here. So black is trying to do everything that they can to basically make that a non-move. And so with this one right here, you are attacking this knight if D4 pushes. And so if you did see the move d4 here, you would be taking the knight, and then pawn would be taking, queen would be taking, and you know the queen is very nicely centralized, and you can start to get the rest of your pieces developed. So we do not see that. After rook to e1, we see queen e6, and then we do see b3, just defending the knight, and we do have d4 possibility. We got the move b5, so basically black is like, man, you don't have no time to push d4, homie. So you can see that a majority of what black has been working on is preventing literally that one move. We got knight going back to e3, we got rook going over to e8, and then we do see knight to f5. And when you guys have seen games before that I've talked about e4, e5, you know, this is a very desirable square for white to get to, and at the same time, it's desirable for the knight. Usually to get to this square, you know, and you are asking each side, do they want to give up a bishop for your knight? But we do not see that. We do see bishop going back to f8. And we're basically just saying, hey, man, you got knight over here kind of eyeing my g7 square. I'm going to go ahead and just defend it, homie. So we do see bishop to e3. We got the move a4. You know, the rook is a little bit undeveloped on a8 since the bishop hasn't moved. So you want to try to get it like alive some kind of way. So we're going to open the a5. So we got a rook going to b1, pawn taking b3, pawn taking b3, and we have kind of successfully gotten something rolling, you know, as far as this a8 rook is concerned. We do see the move c5, and this is just nice. I mean, like I said, you know, it's all going back to what is white wanting to do and what is black going to do to try to stop it. And this c5 move is definitely making it very undesirable. And you still kind of have an issue with this e4 square. So you see everything is kind of, you know, coming together for black. And we do see the move c4. I will say one comment really about this particular move in this position is it does greatly weaken your chance of pushing d4. And it does create a really bad hole on this square. And you have just created a backward pawn for yourself. Now, it's not losing by any means. You see that black does have some structural damage, but it does produce an opportunity for black to make a very nice positional move that leads to a positional idea. So if you want to go ahead and pause the video and try to see what move starts this idea, go ahead and do so. Okay, cool. So I kind of gave you guys a little bit of a hint, but it is a very deep, like, you know, positional type of understanding. And it does center around this d4 square. One of the things that you should notice if you're black is that your knight and your bishop really aren't kind of doing a whole lot in the position. And they kind of want to get liberated some kind of way, right? And so if you also notice that this knight also obviously is not placed really well on d7, where would I like for it to go? As far into white's position as possible, and that square would be d4. Also with d4, you would be looking at if white really wants to get rid of your knight, it has to do so by taking on this square, and it does allow you to fix your pawn chain. So understanding all of that, in this position, your move should be knight to b8. So if you did discover knight to b8 because you understand that, hey, I'm going knight b8, I'm going to go knight c6 and plop down into d4, you would be absolutely correct. You might see something along the lines of bishop back to c1, knight would be coming to c6, you might be seeing the bishop redirecting to b2, the knight would plop down to d4, and like I said, you're basically putting white in a position where it's like, hey man, are you going to give up one of your pieces for my knight in d4? Because knight d4 is beautiful. And so if you see knight 3 taking d4, you would see the pawn taking d4, and this is a beautiful positional idea. So if you did find knight to b8, I mean, congratulations, man. Like, you know, you doing the thing, bro. But going back to what we saw in the game, we did see the move c4. And actually what we saw, which was, I mean, it's definitely a good move in its own right, is the move f6. And you're just making sure everything is solidified in the center of the board. And you're going to be worrying about, you know, kind of where you're going to put your knight later on. We do see the move queen to c2. We got g6. We got knight going to h6 with check, bishop taking, and then bishop taking. And, you know, even though it is still definitely an idea, it's not quite as strong. One of the issues that you do have in the position is the fact that there is no longer a dark square bishop protecting this c5 pawn. So it does somewhat make this knight maneuver a little bit harder to execute. So we do see the move before. We got bishop back to c1 and then knight goes to b8. But like I said, we do see bishop to e3. And now black has to make a decision because, like I said, they are not still defending this pawn. So you kind of have an issue here. So do you move the knight back or do you move the queen over, stuff like that. So, you know, we do see queen going to d6. So you see black has to take the time to make sure that they're defending that c5 point. We do see rook over to a1. We got a rook taking a1, a rook taking a1. And then we do see knight going to c6. But you see that you have caused black to get a little bit more in a defensive position, and white does own this a file. So it's, you know, still fairly even, but it's just not quite as, you know, crazy as it might would have been if knight b8 was played a little earlier. So we do see rook up to a8. We got king down to f7, protecting the rook on e8. Kind of important. The knight does go down to e1 because, as I mentioned before, this is a completely backward pawn. So we kind of have to defend it some kind of way. And we'd like to move our queen over on this file just to completely take it over. So knight to e1 helps us do that. We do see bishop to d7, encouraging the trade. So Giri obliges. Rook takes e8. Bishop takes e8. Queen goes over to a2. So you see that, you know, white is doing a little something, you know, on this open a file over here. The knight does go back to d8. We see the move f3, trying to get our king in there. The knight goes down to e6. We got king to f1. We got f5. We see queen down to a1. We got f4, trying to back that bishop away. But you do want to keep an eye on this square right here, just to make sure that this knight does not improve itself greatly, and then it'll be pressuring this b3 point. We do see the move g5. King goes to e2. We got h5. We got h3, trying to slow down what black is trying to do on the king side. We got king over to e7. We got the move knight to c2. And now you see that white is basically just got all of their pieces on this square, really making it undesirable to try to hop down into d4. We got the move h4. Queen goes to a8. We got the move queen to c6. And then we actually get into a repetition of moves, because Anish Giri decides that he doesn't want to trade queens. And then we see a shifting back and forth. And we have drawn the game by threefold repetition. Now, some of you guys might be wondering, can you actually trade? So if we go back into the position that we initially saw, and we do see queen going to c6. For those of you that are wondering if you can actually trade here, is that cool? You know, maybe it's lost. Is that why Giri's not doing it? Well, at the end of the day, if you do trade here, it would pretty much be the exact same thing. And I'll tell you exactly why. In this position here, queen would take c6, bishop would take c6. And the reason why there is literally nothing that's ever going to happen in this position is because black doesn't have a way with their king to enter into white's side of the board at all. There are no entry points. And at the same time, the bishop, it's the same thing for them. There are no entry points. And basically, anytime, you know, white or black wants to try to plop a knight down into d4, it is immediately going to be taken off the board. And you see that neither white or black has any pawn breaks anywhere. There is no g4. There is no, you know, g3 by white. There is no d4 anywhere because it's going to get taken up. Even if you do press d4, I mean, you're in such a locked position that you are not going to be able to make any progress. So that is that game. I appreciate you guys. Meron salamat. Thank you. And I'm going to see you guys next time.